ZombieTech. Welcome to ZombieTech, a forum for engineers, scientists, and inventors to ponder on the technologies needed to survive the inevitable zombie apocalypse.
She's Addie.
He's Whisker.
And this week, we have a return guest.
Yes, we do.
Again.
Yes, Johnny Diggz, co-founder and evangelist, I think, chief evangelist, of Voxeo, Tropo, Tweet3PO, J3 Communications.
A whole bunch of stuff.
And Geeks Without Bounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to be a pretty much a badass to get on this show twice, and Johnny is one of those kind of people.
Well, I'm honored to be asked back, and when it's kind of scary when you say that list of things because I really don't feel like I do all that much, but I guess I have.
You know, starting something I think is actually one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
Because you have to have the discipline to keep going with it, even when you're like one of a handful of people working on it. Yeah. True. Because Whisker and we're trying to start up a hackerspace here in Rochester, and
because we weren't busy enough.
Yeah, and you know, it's fun, but man, like on a Friday night, I would not mind just chilling and not organizing anything. Not gonna lie.
I have never attempted a hackerspace, but I've been to enough of them, and I have been involved with other people who have tried to build and grow and keep them going, and it's like having a child.
Yeah.
That takes and takes and takes.
Well, I'm sure you've heard plenty of it from Willow too. I mean, being that she had experience with Jigsaw Renaissance, so.
Yep, ongoing too. I mean, she was just on a call the other day. She's actually here in San Francisco this week.
Okay.
So I've gotten a lot of Willow time.
Sure. So and actually, before, so we were going to talk about Papa Legba, and for those who don't know what that is, we'll get to that. But we were gonna.
I play slide guitar blues. I know who that is.
Yes, but you are also living currently in this. Is it like the villa or
we call it the Villa SFO, and it is a 6-bedroom mansion, I'd say. That I'm cohabitating with 5 other roommates. They're all involved in one way or another in the sort of the tech entrepreneur startup world, either in the media or having their own startups, or sometimes both. And the villa is quasi famous right now because it's one of the main locations that they shot the reality show called Startup Silicon Valley, which is airing on Bravo right now.
Sure. Okay. Yep. I've
Just
heard of that.
Yeah. It's so 3 of my roommates were cast members on the show, and while I was not a contracted cast member, I did appear in it. I've appeared in exactly
have some
one
cameo appearances.
You're trying to brush your teeth, trying to change your clothes, trying to get some damn privacy in here.
There is it's funny because of there was one scene that I was in the episode last week, and they had the little title byline that comes up when there was like a new character comes on screen, and mine just said Diggz, Hermione's friend.
That's right. I'm cool enough to be called just Diggz.
Just Diggz.
So then, what all companies are represented now? If they're anything like you, like the rest of the folks in the house, then that might be like 20 some. But let's
San Franciscans of our age group are entrepreneurial like sluts.
Yeah, true. We'll see. Chris Sod is one of the co-founders and chief strategy officer for Echo, and Echo is a cross-platform commenting engine. That it's kind of like
Discuss.
Yes, yeah,
okay.
Kind of like, except well, he would explain it as much better.
Sure, of course.
And then Hermione Way, who is she's the video director for the Next Web, and also has her own video content production company called News Pepper.
Cool.
And she and her brother Ben Way, who also lives here, have a startup together that is one of the focuses of the show, called Ignite, which is a fitness. It's a device and an application to help people lead healthier lives.
Cool.
Then there's Adam Simmons, who is the founder of a company called Corona. They have an application called Awesomium. And then Marcus Levigood, who is former Broadway actor, dancer, singer, and has his own company called Future Leap, which is a social. It's a media distribution company, and he was also the founder of the Pride Super PAC, which is one of the Obama super PACs focused on the gay lesbian community.
Sure. So then, with all you guys, entrepreneurs are by nature rather competitive. Do you guys worry about like discussing too much of your ideas with with the others in the house? I mean, or is there like kind of an implicit trust that you're not gonna gank,
We've actually we jokingly call our group a company called Villa Ventures. There actually is no formal organization, but we have done some group hackathons where we've come up with an idea. We built an app called Fast Forward, which is a video dating platform.
Cool.
Yeah, it's well, we were around, and all of us, ironically, are single, and we were sitting around one morning on Saturday morning, just kind of moaning about online dating, and I guess one of the roommates had gone on a first date from someone they met on OkCupid, so we were curious about what how the date went, and apparently it didn't go so well. And we were talking about how like you can't really get a gist of someone just from their online profile. People can there's creative camera angles and
sure.
Yeah,
sure.
I know what you're talking about. I met Addie online, and man, I'm stuck with her now, and
hey,
I can't. Yeah.
Hey, do you want to sleep in bed at night?
Yeah.
And so we were talking about how if we had a video that was only a dating site that was only video, and it was turn-based video, not real time video, but you can record your profile,
sure.
and then someone else can reply to it, but they have to reply with video, and so you get a much richer sort of experience with the person, and almost like getting that first date out of the way. You've already seen them, you've talked to them, you heard their voice, you've seen their mannerisms. You can get a whole lot more out of that than just a text profile.
So, that makes all the difference, really.
Yeah. So we whipped it together in a weekend and launched it, and we all kind of just implicitly decided, all right, well, if this thing takes off, we'll all equally enjoy the parts of it, and there's like a we don't sign an NDA, but we call it our friend DA.
Sure. Well, that works. That certainly works.
It sounds like an interesting and very busy environment to be in.
Yeah. It is. It sort of has replaced my my daily trek down to the co-working space I have a membership at, because we kind of all just co-work here at the villa.
Right.
And there's a pool, which is like one of the 3 pools that exist in San Francisco.
Are you guys gonna have one of those, those like MTV shows like My Crib or,
There's actually, if you go to the Bravo.com site,
yeah,
they did a crib style. You can go check it out under the startup Silicon Valley videos.
That's awesome. I'll see if I can link it in the show notes. That's great.
On the show, it's almost like the villa is its own character, like, because there's so much that was shot here, and we had all just moved in here. I knew that they were doing the reality show, and so I knew what I was signing up for, but I also knew that I have my own entrance, so I can escape if I want to.
Sure.
And but yeah, it's almost like the villa is its own character on the show. It's kind of interesting.
Now, have you guys started getting like paparazzi? folks lingering around?
There have been a few incidents where we've discovered people taking photos in our courtyard.
Awkward.
Yes.
Oh man. So I mean, are they like cool enough about
We haven't had any any creepy incidents.
Okay. Okay. So, no stalkers just yet.
Just paparazzi, no zombies.
The owner actually came in and updated the security system, and we started actually locking the doors, which we never did before.
Everybody that I know in San Francisco
they're pretty
had
chill
issues with like security around their house lately.
That's a good
just
point.
Seems like, between the homeless and evidently paparazzi, there's a bit of an issue over there with people not respecting property boundaries.
It'd be interesting if they had like zombies that were paparazzi before they became zombies, but they still like go around and random.
I think they get pretty much the same response that they get now, so not much would change.
Papa
zombies.
Yeah.
Papa zombies.
Oh.
Lame segue. Yeah. Segue.
A completely unintentional one too.
Yes.
Quite good. Papa Legba. That's in Hoodoo. That's the dude who's in charge of the gateway between this world and the next, the spirit realm. And the origin of zombies, which is of course what this show is all about, actually comes from that religion set of practices. And Papa Legba would have been involved in opening up the door to be able to move the spirit out of somebody so that they become a zombie. Now, a zombie in this Hoodoo is a little bit different than the popular horror movie version, but that's where the original idea comes from.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And Papa Legba is the name that they chose for a very, very interesting project camp over at Burning Man.
Yeah.
And I hear Johnny was involved this year.
I was. It was interesting. The origin of the name that I was told, and it doesn't necessarily conflict with what you just described, but was more that Legba was the spirit that kind of communicated between this world and the afterlife.
Yep. When they start like a voodoo drum circle, the first set of drums that they play out is always for Papa Legba, so that they can open up the communications channel to the other side. Yeah, he's that guy.
Yeah, which is exactly why that name was chosen, because our focus, our camp project, is communications. So historically, Black Rock City, which is the city that gets created in the middle of the desert, about 2 hours north of Reno, in Nevada, kind of comes out of nowhere, and there's a company and infrastructure team that goes in and puts some basic infrastructure in place. But when you go out there as just a camp, there's been very little. You can't communicate with the outside world. You're pretty much out in the middle of the desert. And so David Burgess, who is the founder of a project called Open BTS, and also the founder of a company called Range Networks, he has been going out there for 6 years or so, and they set up a camp, and they have been setting up a open GSM cell service out in the middle of the desert. So because of my involvement with Tropo, last year we actually went out. I didn't go, but one of my coworkers went and helped set up some Tropo apps, so people could send group text messaging and stuff like that. And so this year I picked the short straw and got to go and play around and help them set up the camp, and very interesting results. We set up 5 cell towers around Burning Man, had coverage for about 75% of the city.
Wow.
So 50,000 people show up for basically 10 days and create the city, and then after it's done, everything disappears, and they have this leave no trace behind policy. So you go around and pick up little tiny scraps of trash and make sure that your camp is completely clean before you leave. So There is actually a commercial cell phone service that has started operating that you can get reception in that area now, but they have one tower, and as soon as more than 50,000 people show up, that tower pretty much gets overwhelmed. So we gave out we have our own SIM cards. That we got from it's the China Mobile SIM cards. So in order to talk on the network, you had to have one of our SIM cards. So it was sort of an interactive thing that you had to kind of come and seek us out. It wasn't like we just made your phone work.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a very interesting thing that happened one day. We the base station is this box. It has a big antenna and it transmits a GSM signal. And so anyone who had a GSM phone, which includes like every iPhone, we had the ability to talk to. Mm-hmm. And one morning, one of the engineers just sort of sent out a text message, just a broadcast text message that said, we're Papa Legba. We're communicating via our open network here on the playa, and if you'd like more information, come find us and gave the coordinates of where we were, and it was almost like a zombie apocalypse.
Well, did you guys hear a collective gasp from the entire Burning Man campus?
What happened was, we typically would have like people who would just kind of come in and be like, "Hey, we hear you have cell phone service. Is that true?" And we'd say, "Yeah." And if they're interested, we would show them how to set up their phone so they could do it. There's some people that were very, very much against this. Obviously, it's not
technology purists or Burning Man purist, I should say.
It's not without its controversy.
Right.
But you don't have to participate if you don't want to.
Right.
And that was our, sort of standard response. We're not, forcing you to answer your phone. And the phone calls, we did allow you to make phone calls outside to what we call the default world. And there was a phone number that if you called someone, they would get a caller ID that was a phone number that only mapped back to your phone on the playa for about an hour. So if somebody called you back, they could call you back within an hour. After that, we burn that number theoretically,
sure.
Quote unquote. And then you also get to pick your own number. So just like on the playa, a lot of people pick their own Burning Man name. You can pick your own Burning Man phone number.
Cool.
So my phone number was 8675309.
Very nice.
And but it was so when we sent that text message out, we literally would have people come up and they would be staring at their phone. They would kind of look and they'd see our big tower.
Yeah.
And kind of hold their phone up like closer to the tower to see if they could get it to do whatever, like some magic. It was like almost like this ritual, and it happened time and time.
That's great.
And I would say, "Hey, how's it going?" And they kind of look at me with this like stunned look on their face, and they're like, "Did you do something to my phone?" And be like, "Well, did you get a message?" And they say, "Yeah," and then be like, "Okay." And it's like, "Well," they're like, "I can't make a call." And I would say, "Well, do you want to make it?" They would kind of look, and they would like, "Well, I kind of wanted to call my my mother because it's her birthday." And I'm like, "Well, we could sit down if you're really interested, and I could probably make your phone work, or you could go over there and there's a phone, landline phone, and you can make a call." And 9 times out of 10 they'd be like, "Oh, I'll just want to make a phone call." So they go over, just old style touch tone phone and dial tone, and they make a usually they pick up the phone and then they'd look at it, and then they'd have to pick up their cell phone to look up the phone number that they were going to call.
I think you have you guys like quasi accidentally programmed the humans, or
yes.
Yeah.
So the day for the entire morning after that text message came out, I was literally like back in high school doing tech support over the phone. Like I turned into customer service mode. Like literally everyone kept coming up, and like one lady was really upset. She was like thinking we hacked her phone, and you
Oh,
know one other guy was like, well, my phone worked before I got here. Why is it not working now? What did you guys do to my phone? We're like, nobody has phone service, sir. We're
right.
providing, we're providing an alternate service that you can use. So it was very educational from usability, like seeing how people deal with their technology when it stops working.
Sure. Sure.
And
It's always
so
fascinating to me how little people actually understand of how the thing that I don't use one, but I understand how it works fine. But all these people, they use it nonstop all day and they just have no clue.
yeah,
It's
I mean,
magic.
it is magic to most people of how but there's so much technology that goes behind what happens with I dial your phone number.
Mm-hmm.
It routes, and without any wires, your phone rings and we can talk to each other, and that's just pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh,
So
So
you were saying that you guys were able to get phones working with SIM cards,
mhm.
um, and there was text. Was there also like web searching and such?
We did not have a data channel up,
Okay.
uh, just voice and text.
Okay.
Uh, we did actually. So the Black Rock City has their infrastructure team has a network operations center. The NOC does have internet access. They get a feed, I think, from the local telco.
yeah, I
Sure.
was gonna ask, are you piping these calls through the net to make this work?
Yeah, so we were getting a Wi-Fi connection to um, to the knock. So we had internet access in our camp, and that allowed us to connect the phone calls via VoIP to the outside world.
Hmm.
Uh, Inside our network, we just passed. The phone calls went through our base station, that got transmitted back out. The base station has a registry of all the phones and the SIM cards and the phone numbers that they're associated with, and so we could route calls and text messages inside our network. But if a phone call went outside to the a default world number, that went VoIP over the internet. So it was
So
it
cool.
was kind of cheating. I mean, I had internet access pretty much the entire time I was at Burning Man, which very few. So I was blogging and posting pictures.
Yeah, I was watching your Twitter feed there. Yeah, it was nice to see some live stuff out of there. I know that's sort of like against the whole point of the whole thing, whatever, but it was fun to see because I was actually interested this time because of Papa Legba, I was more interested in Burning Man this year. Not because I like cell phones, but the idea of building up a communications network in a essentially apocalyptic scenario definitely rings true around here.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely is. I mean, this exact type of setup. I mean, one of the reasons that David and team started Legba was the challenge of setting this up in the middle of nowhere, and we had five towers up. We had one by the airport. We had ours. We had one that was supporting some of the medical crew, and then we had one over at another camp called Playa, which basically just had a big giant dome, and in the middle of it had a bank of phones that people would call. And most of the people that wanted to make phone calls were like legitimate logistical things. They weren't. It
Mm.
wasn't just wanted to call and shoot the shit with their friend. They
Right.
were, hey, my truck is broken. Can you bring your big truck so you can tow me back? Or, we're out of water. Can you bring 5 gallons? Or like I called uh, one of my friends, and I was having some heartburn issues and didn't have any, Tums. And so I was like, hey, could you bring me some heartburn stuff? And like just, you know, because in order to drive out of there, it's a good hour to get to the closest town
Mm-hmm.
and 2 hours to get to the closest city. So it's
So it took a
you know,
bit of effort to get out to get
yeah,
extra
yeah,
supplies. Mm-hmm.
exactly. So
So
it was. like I said, logistical things. We had many people who were like so thankful, and they would bring like I'm gonna let a guy make a phone call, and he came back, 20 minutes later with a case of beer.
Sweet. I guess that's true. Like in a zombie apocalypse, right? Like you would want to barter. You would be willing to barter just about anything to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's only around a limited range.
Yeah.
Because I imagine one of the first things that would happen is that anyone who's interested in being social would sort of shrink the community down to a smaller center, because it obviously needs to be defendable. So you get the more walled village sort of thing, and a cell tower running off of one of these range network boxes covers what size would you say?
I mean, it depends on the size of the tower.
Mm.
So we had kind of a hodgepodge of different towers, and we had the 30-foot tower at our camp, and you get range of about with the 30-footer, I would say about a mile, in it, in every direction.
Nice.
So with one decent tower in one of these boxes, you could cover a small village-sized town with it. And I noticed that they run on 12 volts. So in a situation where you're having to generate your power, 12 volts is a lot easier to hack together.
Yeah, which we were generating our own power. We were not connected to the grid, so we actually had solar panel array.
Cool.
And a wind turbine, as well as a generator. And we only ran the generator at night when the wind was dead. Because otherwise we could just run it completely off of the solar array and the wind turbine.
So you guys ran like each tower with solar arrays and wind turbines?
I mean, not every tower ran that way, but all the ones that we could. I mean, obviously there's a lot of there's a limited amount of toys that we could bring with us, so
sure,
it's a lot easier for some of the towers just to run off of a generator. But when we could avoid that, we did.
And were these towers like? I mean, I'm into the DIY thing. I mean, are we talking like DIY towers? Because that'd be like Uber.
I think one of the ones I saw was actually a remote truck for TV station or something that you guys had converted. I think that might have been last year though.
No, we had that truck out there again this year. So there was one was basically like a satellite truck with a big with one of those big hydraulic extendable towers. And there was also one of them was an ambulance.
Super cool.
And then our tower was sort of a more traditional, I don't know what they call it. It's a triangle shaped scaffolding type device, which comes in 10-foot sections.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had attached on the top of that was the antenna and also the wind turbine, so you can get it up as high as you need to. But and then and so most of them were either on a mobile vehicle or they were like just a standalone tower.
Okay, so essentially, if you had somebody who knew how to create these towers, at least like an engineer who knew what went into it, theoretically,
half the guests that have been on this show, basically,
probably. Then, in the case of Doom and Gloom, someone could totally fabricate these, stick them on, or like we could just steal a whole bunch of those hydraulic, trucks or whatever.
I don't think we need to wait for the zombie apocalypse to get a satellite van. I would love to own one of those. Those are great.
Stick it in our garage,
Yeah.
Whatevs.
Yeah, I mean, you just need to get it up high. So you could use a tree.
That's so cool.
It's just the higher the better, because you're going to get wider coverage. So
right.
Yeah, with the like commercial cell phone companies, they use a lot of directional antennas and a sort of an array. But with this, you're talking just like a omnidirectional sort of antenna, and that's a lot easier to set up a tower for because it's not nearly as heavy.
So, okay, so you said the camp itself had about 50,000 or 55,000 people, and the network you guys set up was able to cover about 75% of
of the physical space. So we had, we would take our phones that we knew worked and just walk in a certain direction until we got no more signal, and then we'd be like, okay. So we knew we had some holes, and we actually had put the call out to, if someone was willing to host.
Move the van 10 feet to the left. Okay.
Exactly. So, we, if we had the equipment to set up another tower, that probably would have gotten us to the 100% mark. But,
so then if one of the questions I wrote here is, how many people can this work for? So say you crammed all 55,000 into that area. I mean, would they be able to, based on normal usage,
one tower can handle maybe 60, 70 voice calls at the same time.
Wow.
So I mean, the density, they handle a lot more text messaging than voice.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that we tracked about was it 7,000 outbound minutes what went through the Tropo network, because Tropo sort of provided the part of the technology and the bridge, so we were able to log some of the activity.
Mm-hmm.
So we had about 7,000 minutes over the course of Burning Man that went out to the default world. But I don't really have much data on how many inter-message, from how many SMS messages people sent or talked to other people on the playa, because that didn't go out. Yeah, that didn't go through the Tropo piece.
Mm-hmm. Although it sounds like most people kept things pretty short.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's because they thought, oh well, this is a quasi hacked up cell network, so we can't stress it out. But
right. No, I think it was more there's so much more to do at Burning Man than to sit on your phone.
Right. Yeah.
It's more like I found myself using it specifically to find people.
Sure.
Or let people know, hey, we're all going to meet at the big giant steampunk octopus.
Sure.
Because this is the sort of thing one says to others at Burning Man. Yeah. So now there's a couple of interesting sort of related social aspects of this that I think are important to bring up. One is that there really is not another venue in the world where you could get away with doing what you guys did.
Yeah, you're probably right. I memean, other than at some, there's some places like Camp Roberts where people go to sort of test out this type of gear, like communications gear and crisis responder type toys. But other than that, yeah, there's not a whole lot of opportunity to test this stuff out. That I mean, we had a license from the FCC.
You need an X license, an experimental license to even play with this stuff, right?
Exactly. So, I mean, as soon as you turn these transmitters on, you're under the regulation of the FCC in the United States, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, when they test them in their lab, they keep the power down so low that you could really have a network that's only 5 meters. But if you turn them on full, you can interfere with the
2 miles.
I mean, you could use one of these things to hijack a phone network. I mean, that's they are phone networks. I mean,
right.
Yeah, and the GSM
protocol
is totally. I mean, you can convince the phones to drop down to unencrypted style GSM, and then you can basically see everything in plain text that's going through. So having one of these little boxes A lot of hacker people that I know own similar things, and they've come up with all sorts of creative ways to abuse these things in the lab.
Sure.
Yeah, but I mean, they're actively used by law enforcement agencies. They're heavily used in Central and South America, specifically for anti-drug surveillance.
And this is the sort of thing that Kevin Mitnick would have been using to find out that the police were sitting outside of his apartment when he was on the run. And, there's all sorts of this technology, communications technology isn't locked down like so many other technologies is, because internally it's a trusted network. So they don't expect that anyone is on the inside of that wall. So they haven't done, the design of it isn't quite as robust security-wise as it maybe could be or should be.
Yeah, I mean, the technology is simple enough and readily available enough that if I wanted to right now, I could spin up a network, call it T-Mobile, and anyone who within range of it that has a T-Mobile device can roam into my network, and if they make a call, I could listen to I can see all the data that's going through. I can see who they're calling. I can snoop on the call. Wow. I mean, it's that simple to do. Fortunately, most of the people that I know don't do that.
Yeah. Most, but not all.
I've heard some talks about stores and malls thinking of setting up their own little boxes like this so that they can send advertising text messages to you when they detect that you walk by their front door. Now, this is very short range stuff, but still, it's if you're, it's just, I don't know, it just gives me a bad feeling knowing that it's this easy to do this sort of thing, and given the money for the boxes anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could build. I mean, Range Network sells the boxes, but you can get the Open BTS is open source. You could download the stack. You can install it on your own box, and if you have if you know about transmitters and stuff like that, you can totally DIY one of these.
So let's say we're in the middle of nowhere, say Burning Man. What does it take? What would it take to set up this network in terms of supplies, and we've already talked about some of them. And how fast did it take to set up?
So Burning Man starts on a Sunday. I got there on Friday before it started. We had advanced team access because we were setting up this network, which they allow. So if you could apply to get early access if you're setting up like an art project or whatever.
Sure.
So I got in on Friday. There was an advanced team of about 4 people that went on the Wednesday before, and by the time I got in on Friday, they had already set up the network, the main public network, and then over the next couple of days, we went out and set up the 4 satellite ones, and which really is a base station, a BTS station, which is a base transceiver station. It's a box that runs the Open BTS software. It has it sort of codes and decodes, and that hooks up to you hook that up to the antenna, and that is how you operate one of these things. There were some other pieces that we had. Essentially a router, which was a little Linksys box that connected the Open BTS to the internet, so we could do our voice over IP calls on that world. But other than that, that's pretty much it. And then you program the BTS station to or the BT station to recognize SIM cards. A specific, in this case, we had it tuned to these China Mobile SIMs that David Burgess had bought in bulk.
I think some of them were expired too.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
We also bought a bunch of about 100 of these little Nokia burner phones. They're like cheapo GSM phones that we paid like $5 each for. And you put the little China Mobile SIM in, and I spent a lot of my time at Burning Man actually like testing the phones, make sure they had a good battery, up with the charger, put the China Mobile SIM in, program it. You had to do a little programming with the worst user interface ever invented.
I've seen a little video of that. It uses SMS messages back and forth with the central point to actually sort of give it access.
So you register your phone via SMS. So when you turn the phone on, you put the SIM card in, you turn the phone on, and it blinks and and as soon as it registers with the BTS station, there was some custom software that sent a text message back to that phone and said, "Welcome to the Papa Legba network. Please choose your 6-digit phone number." So we did 6-digit numbers because we didn't want to, confuse other people's 7-digit numbers or 10-digit numbers, or, we reserved 3-digit numbers like 911 didn't work at all, and we let people know that. So they pick your number, and then that would register that number in the database, and that would be tied to your phone's IMSI, which is the sort of MAC address for telephone networks. And then from then on, anytime someone dialed that number that was on the network, it would route to your phone, and you could talk to them or send them a text message.
Wicked.
So
absolutely wicked.
And so, and if you had an unlocked GSM phone, we could open it up, put one of those China Mobile SIMs on, and you could use that as well. And like I said, except for that one day where we did a little test with all of the GSM phones just to see what would happen, and we created our own little zombie apocalypse.
Super cool. So being that it was in such a desolate area, like what was the easiest thing to do and the most difficult thing to do?
The easiest thing. So, the one thing that I was, the easiest thing to do at Burning Man is to make friends, because like everyone is like super nice,
super happy,
friendly, altruistic, willing to help out. Like, it was just if that was the one thing I think that I was not prepared for. Like, physically people tell you like, oh, make sure you bring a mask, bring it, because it's really dusty. And when I say dusty, like this desert is not sand like beach sand. This entire thing happens on a dried up lake bed. And so if you think of the fine silt on the bottom of a lake, that is this stuff, except it's all dried out, and it's like baby powder dust. And it gets everything. It gets in every device, it gets in every crevice, it gets in your ears, eyes, nose, and everything else you can think of. And it's like kind of acidic, so it's like this alkaline-y stuff, so it can burn your eyes really easily. And so when the wind kicks up, like it tended to do every afternoon, as the desert got really hot, it just would create these whiteout conditions where you can't see 5 feet in front of you. It's just completely blinding, and you just stop. Like if you're not inside a tent or inside any kind of shelter, you just have to kind of sit there and wait for it to stop because you can't see.
Yeah,
it is literally blinding. So that was like one of the most challenging things, and I still have some stuff in my room here at the villa that, like, I mean, I brought a backpack out there. That's never usable again.
Just put it in the closet for next time.
What I did with that backpack was I put all of my Burning Man stuff that I know I want to bring next year, and
nice.
And yeah, now it's just sitting in a corner.
So the part that made it easy was that everyone was willing to help you. And the part that makes it difficult is that it's very difficult to do anything due to conditions. Yeah, that's pretty much what I would expect. Anyone that's out there is out there because they really want to be and they're excited to be. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, now, and you're all going through the same thing. So everyone's going through that whiteout. So it creates this bonding experience that we're all, we're all together. There's almost a spiritual ritualness about the bathrooms there.
The bathrooms?
Bathrooms. So there are, these porta potties that the infrastructure team sets up, and they get cleaned, by a professional crew twice a day. But I mean, you have 50,000 people. That's a lot of waste.
Mm-hmm.
And so people sort of congregate and meet around the bathrooms. Like, I don't know how many times I ran into waiting in line at the bathroom. There's one group that waits for someone to go into one of the bathrooms, and then they very quietly set up a red carpet. And when the person emerges from the bathroom, they all cheer and they they're like they just won an award.
Oh, it's such an interesting group of people.
The creativity, the amount of creativity, and just pure, unadulterated, like, blissful joy that people take in, like, just screwing with their head. They had this one group built an entire, well, not entire, but like 3 large buildings, like a skyscraper type, like a replica of New York skyscraper, and it was the Occupy Burning Man group. And they had logos on the buildings, and one of them was like Bank of Un-America, and Chase Your Money Bank, and
Chase Your Money Bank. That's awesome.
And then, like, they with so much time and energy and materials and stuff, and they built this entire movie set quality art installation, and then they burn it.
Yeah.
And everybody goes and watches it burn and screams and cheers, and then it's just like it's kind of crazy. Hey guys, there's a special guest that just walked in, one of your other former
Willow. Woo! Hi, Willow. If she can hear us. Probably not.
I can hear you.
Oh, fantastic. Hi.
So I wanted to hi, it's really nice to hear your voice. I hope to chat with you guys soon, but I wanted to tell you the best take I ever heard about Burning Man and how someone approached it was, it's their new year where you bring the best things that you've done that year and you burn it because it wasn't good enough, and you're going to do better the next year. Not in a deprecating way, but in
a hopeful
Zen detachment. I like it.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So I adore you both, and Diggz, I'll see you in a little bit. I'm going to run away.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye, Willow. You guys are awesome. And I totally dig her hair. And if I could, like, do it on myself, I totally would. But Whisker might freak out.
Yeah, it's been really great because she helped. I was unable to make it to the Random Hacks of Kindness here in San Francisco because I had an obligation to be in Atlanta. And so Willow was kind enough to come and run the event here in my stead. And so she's staying this week because on Monday night we're doing me and my roommates and some other folks are doing a benefit, a Broadway for Sandy benefit for
Very cool.
Yeah. Occupy Sandy group.
Right. Yeah. So actually, speaking of Random Hacks of Kindness, because and like time is just slipping away, but you guys recently, December 1st and 2nd had like worldwide hackathons, essentially. And what projects have come out of that?
So the random hacks of kindness events have been going on for about 2.5, 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
We've been involved in organizing uh, many of them. They're locally organized. There's a parent sort of governing organization, and but the individual events need someone on the ground to actually find the venue, and they get the food, and they get the Wi-Fi, and they put together. And then there are these problem definitions that get curated through the Random Hacks website, and the problem definitions are usually put together um, by experts that they see a problem in the field, or someone from the Peace Corps or someone from Amnesty International. They identify something, and then they put this problem in front of a group of developers and say, hey, help us.
Mm-hmm.
So we get together for a weekend twice a year. That happens the first weekend in December and the first weekend in June, and put these problems in front of some hackers. And so this particular one I started in Atlanta, was there were a lot of hacks going on there related to the Peace Corps. The Peace Corps. This is the first time the Peace Corps got involved. So they sent a bunch of folks, and there were a lot of projects focused around sanitation. So the World Health or the World Bank sponsored a set of prizes specifically focused around sanitation and what they call the toilet hacking.
Yeah, and poop comes up on this show all the time, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it's a big problem, and not there. People don't realize how valuable basic plumbing is.
Yeah, that infrastructure is totally taken for granted in this country anyway, but in most parts of the world, it's a little bit more difficult to facilitate a good way of getting rid of that stuff. And the Peace Corps is definitely one of the lights in the darkness on making sure that happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge critical infrastructure, and ironically enough, what you were just talking about at Burning Man, I mean the
yeah, that's right.
Really see the sheer volume of shit that comes out. If you deal with it in a safe way, it will start killing people. I mean, it's a scientific fact that our waste will kill us if we do not dispose of it properly.
I have a question. Have they ever considered burning the shit at Burning Man? Is that even possible?
Yeah, that's what they do at ad hoc military camps. They just burn it. And yeah it's not necessarily the best idea.
Gross.
It'd be interesting to talk with the folks that are actually involved in that part of it, because I mean, I know that it's just
massive undertaking.
And then people put out like signs in the bathrooms, like just like funny things to like remind you, do not put anything other than your waste and toilet paper in this thing, or you will clog it up. And it's people even with the signs and reminders and the altruistic and like everybody's in this together, there were still people who abused the bathrooms. I don't get it, but
yeah.
But yeah, so that was one of the big hacks that we worked on, and specifically in San Francisco. So I landed and caught the last 2 hours in San Francisco, and saw the final presentations. And there was some hacks on tracking medical devices, so sort of like Etsy for medical gear, like if you got a microscope and someone else needs a microscope, that kind of stuff.
I always need a microscope.
And there was one that was sort of a fundraising app, which was one of the girls. This is her first hackathon, but she had connections with a lot of the sports organizations through her other job.
Mm-hmm.
So they put together a sort of a website that you could get. You could get free tickets to sporting events and use those tickets as fundraising tools. So like basically if you wanted to like raffle off some tickets to go see the Giants play, they would give you the tickets, and then there was an innate value, and then the fundraising organization could benefit from that.
Awesome.
So it wasn't really like a very technical hack, but it was like sort of a logistical thing that they put together. That people come with different skill sets and they do what they can.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, like you said, it's logistical. Can you imagine having to go through the normal channels to get that type of thing set up? It would just be a nightmare.
Exactly. So, and she already had the connections to 3 or 4 of the teams through her corporate day job. So
right. So you might as well use them.
Yeah.
Cool. And then, like, I think you were saying the Occupy Sandy thing. Like, I was going to listen to the Google Hangout that you guys did. I don't know if it was yesterday or 2 days ago, but what's going on with that?
So the Occupy group, movement, organization, lack of organization, decentralized, whatever it is, they got together very quickly in the days leading up and after Sandy to help organize in New York area. They were easy. It was easy for them to do because they already had their network together of people who and supplies and logistics and they knew how to organize quickly, and so they became almost. From what I've heard, they've been much more effective than the Red Cross or any of the other organizations that are traditionally doing this type of recovery and response. And I think partially because of their ad hoc nature, and they don't have to really follow any. They go by their own set of rules,
Right. They don't have to.
They
do
can
the
respond
paperwork
instantly to any situation, which always makes you more efficient.
Right.
Yeah. In any crisis situation, in any sort of natural disaster or man-made disaster or whatever, the first responders are always going to be the survivors. So they're the people that didn't get killed. They're the neighbors. They're the then the hopefully not too long after that the fire departments and local city and county responders will come, and then usually within days you'll get federal and sometimes international aid as well. But this totally makes sense to me because the Occupy folks, they were they already had communicate well. They've got websites set up, they've got wikis set up, they've got phone trees and whatever they normally do to organize their protests. So they just turned that to help in the crisis response. And so we had several of the people who were directly involved with Occupy Sandy on our Google Hangout the other day. We're talking about the communication setup and how they use SMS tools and documentation and interacting. Willow was actually invited to participate with FEMA's innovation team.
Cool.
So we sponsored her to fly her to New York, and she actually was on the ground within days after the storm came through with the FEMA innovation team, and their job was, they did some response and help, but their primary job was to look at the systemic problems in the response and make recommendations on how to improve FEMA's response in the future. And Willow specifically was the liaison between some of the governmental organizations and the ad hoc orgs like the Occupy Sandy folks to sort of bridge that communications in between two groups that didn't normally have there was no formal method of communicating between those two groups, and so Willow was helping provide that bridge.
Fantastic.
Sounds like a good excuse to get her back on the show, actually.
Yeah,
it's a good topic.
Yeah, it is, and she actually has a really cool presentation that she just put together that I saw on Sunday, and she's going to be giving a talk at our benefit on Monday night to kind of talk about some of her hands-on experience there, and I highly recommend it.
And we've had a few guests recently that are right from that area, and we've been trying to collect some fresh stories on what life has been like during and right after. But a lot of the people that we would have liked to talk to, we couldn't, and we still can't because they're so stuck getting things put back together still. So yeah, it's a big deal over there, and I'm glad that I don't know, the activist crowd out there is over helping. It's a really, really great thing. But that's all the time we have for this week, unfortunately.
So sad.
Is there anything that you would really, really like to make sure people are aware of before we wrap up?
No, if you're interested in learning more about Papa Legba, there's an ongoing wiki that's if you just it's not a short URL, but just Google Papa Legba Burning Man, and there's a wiki that explains all about the project and the people involved and why we do it and how we do it and all that stuff. And so look for that. And then Geeks Without Bounds, Willow just posted some of her thoughts about Sandy response and stuff like that on the Geeks Without Bounds. It's gwob.org. And other than that, I'm looking forward to spending the rest of my holidays back in Florida.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today, Johnny. It was a lovely episode. You listeners out there can find this show every Thursday at ZombieTech.tv. We put it up in the evenings. There's an RSS feed there if you want to automatically download it to your phone, not through Papa Legba because they didn't turn that on yet. But you can just push play on the webpage on the normal internet. The default internet, I think, would be the Burning Man way of saying it. All right, that's it for us for this week. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.